Welcome to Modern Farm Business Podcast. This podcast is designed to help the farm leader bring their business to the next level. We'll cover everything from leadership and finance to strategy and planning. I'm your host, Dean Hefta. In the fall of 2000, Mickey Pfleger started his third decade as a sports photographer. Not once in hundreds of hours on NFL sidelines had he been even touched by a player. Then, at the 49ers Chiefs game, he was drilled by a Kansas City tight end, knocking Mickey unconscious. Potentially a very bad event. Today, we're talking about good and bad. In our lives, we have events that occur that in the moment we may view as bad, or that we might view as good. As leaders, though, we must maintain perspective. We have to keep a point of view that helps us to make wise decisions in the moment and to prevent the team around us from becoming irrational. Warren Buffett's take on this is his famous quote that he wants to be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. It's a contrarian mindset that has paid handsomely for Mr. Buffett. Unfortunately, a lot of the time, our subconscious wiring works against us to make this possible. When we're fearful, our adrenal glands send out cortisol and adrenaline. This is our fight or flight response. When we're in this mode, it's very hard to make rational, long-term decisions. We become emotional and our focus becomes about surviving in the moment, not about preparing for 10 years into the future. The other side of this is when we're feeling joy. Chemicals like dopamine and endorphin can lead us to think everything's great, and because it's great now, it's going to continue to be great. The old saying in trading is to buy low and sell high. But research that was done with people in their stock trading shows just what you'd probably expect, that most people let emotion, in particular fear, get the best of them when prices fall. There's just too many stories of this happening from 2008. When people exited their stocks near the low of the market for fear that the slide was going to continue and that they would have their market portfolio go to zero. Unfortunately, many of those people are still on the sidelines looking for an opportunity to get back in the market. So, how do we apply this reality to our day-to-day as leaders? In our role, we're faced with making decisions and managing our emotions and perspective in the moment so that we can make key decisions. Now, there are things that happen that in that moment, they appear to be bad. Maybe an employee quits, you get a flat tire, or maybe your business is struggling to make money. In the moment, our instinct can be to look at these as bad things. We go into fear mode. Our energy can begin to focus on what's bad, and potentially we can begin sliding into this victim thinking and a mode of really feeling that we're powerless to take action. This is where perspective comes in, and not only when things aren't going well. When something happens to seem great, we also need that contrarian view. Maybe you win the lottery, sell your product from your business for a high price, or maybe you have a business and you land a huge client. These are things that we may have been hoping for, but the contrarian recognizes that Newton's third law is at work here, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And while this is a physics law, you can see this play out in other ways too. And I'm not trying to take the luster off great things happening and waiting for that other shoe to drop. That's not what it's about at all. It's really about recognizing that when something great happens or when something terrible happens, our timeline of measuring if it's great or terrible might be too short. Winning the lottery seems like there could be nothing but good stuff that happens because of that. Unfortunately, 70% of large lottery winners are bankrupt within 7 years. Maybe we hope for high commodity prices, but as we saw over the last 10 years, it brings with it new competition and higher costs to operate, all of which stick around longer than the high prices do. What about getting a huge client? Maybe landing Walmart. It seems like a blessing to have a large and reputable client, But too often, small businesses can't withstand the demands, the prices, or the payment terms from a large client. And this seeming win ends up putting that business under. The flip side is those seeming bad things. Let's go back to Mickey, our photographer. He was knocked unconscious and had to have an MRI to evaluate his concussion. Through the evaluation, though, they discovered something unexpected, a brain tumor. Now, this situation can be looked at a variety of different ways. The concussion was bad. The early discovery of the tumor was good. But having the tumor is bad. Maybe our employee leaves. Initially, we're frustrated, we see it as a bad event, but through their departure, we find a new employee who might end up being a better fit for the operation. That's a good thing. Your business struggling to make money. That's bad. But this sparks creative thinking on how we can increase revenues and cut expenses and diversify and improve our processes. Without the challenge from our finances, we wouldn't have grown our business skills and we wouldn't have built a stronger business. So for me, the lesson becomes that more often than not, we measure good and bad on too short of a time frame. Here's some tools to keep in mind as you encounter good or bad events. First, know yourself. Look back on your tendencies and your patterns from past events. Do you typically become overly pessimistic when something has gone wrong and it keeps you from seeing possibilities around you? Or maybe your optimism tends to keep you from considering what risks might be around the corner that you need to prepare for. Next, plan ahead. Visualize how you'll respond when the good or the bad things happen. Having this in your mind helps you to take a more rational approach when the event comes up. You're more prepared for it. A study of over-the-road truckers who had more than 1 million miles without incident found the greatest difference between them and other truckers is that they are continually visualizing what might happen next and how they will respond. What will I do if that car pulls out? What if, when I come around the corner, there's an animal standing on the road? What if I blow a tire out right now? This mental rehearsal helps the truckers and us to act more quickly and more effectively when we need to. Also, ask different questions. Questions like, with this change, what opportunities might there be? How will I look back on this in a year? What impact will this event have on our industry long term? If a friend was experiencing this, what would be my advice to him? Different questions help us to trigger different thinking and different perspectives in the moment. So the next time you have something bad happen, look for what opportunities could be opening up and consider if you're evaluating it being bad on too short of a time frame. And when that windfall arrives, don't forget there could be some hidden risks that you're simply not seeing right now. Thanks for joining me again today. I love hearing from listeners about their stories and episode ideas. Be sure to email me at dean@modernfarmbusiness.com with any thoughts or comments that you'd like to share. I look forward to seeing you again next week.